Hey guys, welcome to a Linux tech tip and tricks video. We're going to be doing this kind of like new series in addition to our home lab series to kind of help you figure out, hey, I've shown a lot of tools that you can put into your home lab, but also at the same time kind of want to take a little bit deeper dive into, some of the Linux stuff, some of the background things that I might not mention in a home lab video, or just content that I think is very good to just know about Linux in case you ever need to, set up like SSH keys in this case. That's what we're going to be doing in this video, or something else that is essentially a good to know that you may not know just starting off with Linux. So this video is also sponsored by me, myself, and I. So if you enjoy the content, want to kind of sponsor me or send me some free swag, my email is in the description below. So, okay, let's get started, guys. So this video is going to really be focused on SSH keys, how to create them, how to use them, and why should we use them, right? So whenever you build a server, essentially you can log into a server. So in like this case, we can log into our CA server that we created, and it prompts you for a password. We log in with a password, everything is good and dandy, right? So SSH keys essentially do the same thing, but SSH keys just make it so it standardizes it so that you don't need to use a password. You essentially have a private key, which is what you have on your computer, and a public key, which you would put on the server. And essentially you can treat private keys and public keys kind of as like a door lock. You got a lock and you got a key. You can't unlock the door without the key, and if you have the wrong key, it won't work. So it's kind of essentially that aspect. So essentially we're going to create the lock, and we're going to put the lock on the server, and we'll have the key as our private key, right? So this kind of helps with like security related things, or just making it easy to make it non-interactive if you need to put a file on a server but you can't use passwords. Keys are a very good way to do it. Key, in this case, SSH keys are very great for a security aspect because essentially you don't need a password to log in, and you essentially means the only way someone can log in to a server with your key is by having that key file, and unless for some reason that key file, you just give it to someone, which you never give or share, essentially they won't ever get it. Whereas with passwords, you could reuse that password for multiple different things online, on the web, and the problem with that is, data leaks, hacks, and things like that. That password could be leaked, and people can just, essentially go, oh, hey, well, this was leaked for this email. Maybe I could try it with multiple different, accounts and stuff like that. And so essentially that gets rid of that, problem where if your passwords leak, they don't even have your SSH key, so they can't log in if you don't have a password set. So what we're going to do here is actually show you how to create an SSH key and then how to upload it to your server using Windows box. It's very similar to using a Linux box or a Mac to create the key essentially. So the thing is, we'll type SSH keygen, which will essentially key generate the key. So it'll create the private and public. So by default, it'll be put into your user's directory, and then .ssh, and then ID_RSA will be your private, ID_RSA.pub will be your public. So this is your default. Essentially, when this is created, whenever you try to log in, it will always try this key because of what it's named. You can also create different keys and name it whatever you want, but then you have to specify that key because it won't try to read those by default. But we'll leave it by default so you can kind of just see how it goes. So we hit enter. Now the passphrase. Here you can leave it blank and you won't need a passphrase on your key. Highly would recommend putting a passphrase on your key. So this is like another extra layer of security where essentially if someone did get your key, they can't use it unless they know the password for the key to be used. So it's like, hey, so now you need to get my key somehow and then figure out what my password for the key is. So that's just the extra layers of security. You don't need to, it's not required. You could leave it blank and not require it. But in this case, we will add one because it's better to be more secure than less secure, right? So we'll add a password, and then it will generate a key. So now if we go to our .ssh folder in our directory, we can see in here that it creates the ID_RSA and ID_RSA.pub. Never share your ID_RSA. That is your private key. Do not share it. If anyone asks for it, they are trying to essentially hack you. don't ever listen to anyone who asks for that. The public key, on the other hand, you should share, because that is how the server knows that, hey, this is the lock we're putting on, and this is the key to unlock it, so you need to share this. So what we can do is do type idrsa.pub so we can see what the public key looks like. The public key should essentially start with SSH-RSA and then a lot of random hash values that you won't ever know why. And then you can see a space here, and then this is the identifier description. So usually by default when you create it, the identifier will always be the user at the computer name. You can change this. This is just a descriptor. It doesn't need to stay this. It can be whatever you want if it makes more sense for you, but you can make it whatever you want. By default, it'll just do that. So now we have our public SSH key. So there are a few commands that you could run to actually just upload it. We're going to do this manually. Because Windows doesn't have like the SSH copy ID and whatnot. So we're going to just do this manually. So what we're going to do, I'm going to open another browser here and log into our CA server, root at ca.dragon.local. So we'll want this key to be used for the root user. Obviously, if you have different users, you should put it on their home directory. So essentially, whatever user you want to put it on, it would be their home directory .ssh and then authorized key. That's the file. So we're going to make sure that the .ssh folder is created. And in this case, it is. There's a few files. There's no host because I've actually SSH. You can also, the other way to create it, and you can actually just, and make sure that the permissions are correct, is you can just SSH to like localhost and it'll automatically create the file, the directory. Because it will have to grab the node host and populate this node host file. So then we will create the authorized keys file. Note that this file name is very specific. It needs to be authorized_keys, otherwise it won't work. We're going to vi it. And then essentially you can put as many keys as you want. And it's just new line delimited. So here's one key. If I want another one, I would hit enter, paste another key. You just paste the file in here and save it. Then you want to modify and update the permissions. The permissions for this file should be 600 authorized keys. And you can see it's 600 because it's read write and nothing else. So that's 600 right there. So what now you can do is, so from here, we can actually just SSH root at ca.dragon.local. So now it'll prompt you for the passphrase for my key, not the server password, my key, because we set a passphrase on them. So we'll type in the passphrase, and we have officially logged in with using our key to authenticate as opposed to the password. So this is an easy way. If you're trying to automate and do things, you probably want to put a passphrase on the key because it's more of a non-interactive thing. But in this case, because we know we're going to use the key to actually authenticate with, I'm going to put it that extra layer of security just to put a passphrase on the key. But you can see how the key actually logged in, and you can see that it accepted the key. You can also tail the logs. So if you grab the logs from Vault Log Secure, you can also see that authentications happen, and it said, and right here you can see accepted public key for root from my Windows VM with this key hash. So if you ever run into an issue where you're like, why isn't this key working or whatnot, tailing the Vault Log Secure while you're trying to authenticate will show you essentially, hey, what's actually trying to hit it and whether it's succeeding or not, or maybe if you have permissions wrong on a file, because that's happened a lot to me too before. So that is how you set up an SSH keys, guys. Highly recommend doing it, but it's up to you depending on your use case. But it's very easy to set one up and not have to worry about a password for your server. And then, yeah, so if you liked the video, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.